Real real YouTube is rip off others. It's called an homage. Please don't sue me. My name is too long for this intro. I don't even think he does this intro anymore. What's up, everybody? It's me, Sam Tate, aka the Ace Maneuvers. I know I haven't been doing a lot of content. It's been tough to chew through all the reviews and stuff. But I just got, well, I didn't just get back. It's like midnight. I got back from judging the Vegas RLE very recently. I'm happy I got to do that. I'm someone who likes to kind of checklist everything, and I'm not like a perfectionist. I'm not like a completionist. I don't like platinum trophies or like collectathons or having like a full set of anything, but I very much value having like a well-rounded skill set. Basically, I very much value like being good in multiple areas of things. If you know, when I played sports, I always want to be a multi-position player. You know, want to be good at more than just one thing, right? So I think it's very cool that I've gotten to do commentary at the highest level, World Championship. I've made top cuts at RLEs, you know, top 8 at 250 plus 500 person. I think it was a 500 person 9 round event. Made top 8 at that. You know, now I've gotten to judge. I've kind of done it all. So I don't think anyone else has done that. There's definitely lots of people have done 2 out of 3. There's lots of people who have made top cuts and done commentary, made top cuts and done judging. Nilmerg has done judging and commentary, but I don't think anybody's done all 3. So, not that's like a major achievement. There's actually no barrier to entry for some, you know, for one of these 3 things. So, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. I do want to keep this lesson like a 20-minute rant, but it's difficult stuff to talk about. So this weekend was really cool. I got to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. I got to see Levi Lalonde, Mr. Alliteration Gaming himself. I got to see Nick Reagan, Colby Cram, the Unfun Stuff Boys. Rochester was in the house. Brandon Jones, who's a local, but he made top cuts. I'm proud of him. Doug Saney, I think is how you say his last name. I know how to spell it. That's my accolade. I'm one of the only people who ever spelled it right the first time. I don't know how to say it. This was his first regional, and he made top 8. You know, it was a slimmer cut. It was a smaller field. But I'm really proud of him. So it was really cool to see all the people from out of town. Obviously, I can't go through every name. I'll forget somebody. And it was just, you know, it was just a really nice weekend. Darkside Games TO'd the event. They took care of me. Maybe it's just I'm more familiar with them and it's my hometown, but like they had everything taken care of. You know, it was a very chill event. Pretty relaxed event. As far as the judging goes, it was not super difficult. I fielded mostly softball questions, and we were admittedly a little overstaffed. You know, there wasn't a ton of calls happening. And I think we did do a good job overall. I have not heard of any strictly bad rulings. I've not heard any stories of like someone ruling a card incorrect. We did get clarification on the learning to harden FAQ. We've implemented the FAQ rules. You know, there was some confusion about like using a different ruling than the FAQ with the rule book, and that was mostly because the FAQ had come out so close to an event. So we got a lot of good communication and stuff going in the beginning. Obviously, nobody's perfect. You know, obviously, there's going to be somebody who had a judge call that didn't go their way and is unhappy. But I think for the most part, at least, again, I haven't heard any true horror stories. But it is sort of inevitable that a big part of judging is you're going to have some sort of conflict resolution. Going to be some attempt to repair a board state. The game state itself is something that people don't even really necessarily agree on. And I'm glad I took this opportunity to be on the other side of the aisle. You know, as a player, I understand why players feel the way they do. And now I understand why judges do a little bit better. So as a player, I'm very much not a fan of the accepted board state kind of a thing, but I always understood its mechanical function. I always understood why it exists where it does, right? It exists because if you don't allow for an accepted board state to continue, then there is some level of abuse for when people watch you make a mistake or an illegal play. They wait for you to further change the game state and then call a judge, and now it's irreparable and it can't be fixed. It can't be a warning. And so that's why the accepted game state kind of answer exists, and it sucks because it feels like you're doing nothing. And as a judge, it feels like I'm not doing anything if I say that. So it's very difficult to do that. But on the flip side, you don't want to hand out game losses. You know, like on the flip side, we're already trying not to hand out game losses. We're not trying to determine the outcome of the game. And unfortunately, a lot of times, penalties for illegal plays can be a huge part of that. They're oftentimes, I don't want to say devastating, and sometimes they're completely meaningless. I've definitely had some where it's like, okay, I removed this card and like nothing changed for me, right? But so the impact is always different, and that's kind of tough to deal with. But yeah, I think that the best thing was we were doing a good job of communicating with each other, discussing any judge calls we did take, making sure that we're on the same page for how we ruled them and conflict resolution and things like that. We had some stumpers, and there's definitely the main thing I learned is that when it comes to listening to a story of a judge call, and this is something I felt for a long time, like there's never enough context. There's, people are like, well, blah, blah, blah happened, XYZ was the result, and this is wrong. And I'm just like in my head, I'm trying to think of, there's like so many ways. There's so many little things that could change the way that you should rule that or the conflict resolution you should use, A really good example of that, I don't want to talk too much about actual judge rulings here, and I'll talk about that in a minute because I think that there needs to be more structure. But I do want to give a really interesting example of one where there's like a card drawn and the opponent, right? The basically there's a Jiro player and the opponent. So the Jiro player looks at the top cards. The opponent goes to draw a card. Or the version of the story I first heard was they draw a card. Then the Jiro player says, wait, I wanted to cancel that, so they call a judge. Like they didn't give me a time to respond. And the issue comes that you can't just remove the card from their hand because what if the Jiro player wanted that card on top of their deck? Right? What if this was like an advantageous position? The Jiro player chose the card that goes on top. Right? So you can't just remove it from the game. But you also can't just put it back on top of the deck because now the opponent has gained information that, should be privy only to a Jiro player. That's like their whole character ability. And so in that instance, trying to repair a game state, I think it is truly impossible. Like if you have like this perfect image of the game state and going back to exactly how it was is not possible. And in the same respect, right, there's like this idea of like random is random. I know Magic the Gathering, a lot of times they can just shuffle a card back into a deck, for one reason or another. And it's like, these are all random cards again now. Like, that's fine. But because of the way our game works and because of the specific information that was held, it just didn't really work out. So like the second time I heard that story, it involved the card in question being face down on the table. So that changes my opinion, right? That's, if the opponent knows what the card is, we can't just put it back on top. But if you do that thing where you like draw the card and like set it on the table or like you're skimming it on the table, that is your window to say something. That is your window to respond and say, hold on, stop, don't touch it, put it down. I have a response. Um, and that's why people do it. That's why people draw cards that way. And so I don't know where that card's been, who got that information. I don't know if the players would have offered that, if the judge would have thought to think that, like the so it's this whole thing where like you can't necessarily trust things that you hear, right? And I've now lived through that experience on both sides. And every time I hear of like a bad judge call or I hear like a story, I'm always just like fiending for more information. Most of the time it's what was one of the people in the situation thinking, but still I need more information to really have an opinion. And so this was pretty eye opening in just how drastic that can be. Because we would have pretty much any ruling that we gave out, we would confer with at least one other judge, usually as a group, and be like, hey, this is the issue. If, this is a penalty. We had like a record, we had a digital record to like keep track of warnings given out and stuff like that. So I felt like we were really on top of that. Obviously, if you watch the coverage, we weren't perfect. There was definitely, some slips through the cracks, and luckily, I don't think there was any. I don't think like it punished anyone in the end, which isn't really how I like to think about it, but it is kind of a relief, right? It's one of those things where potentially a player should have won sooner than they did, and they didn't lose that game, so it's very tough. Going back to like the sort of accepted board state answer, you don't, as a judge, you don't want to determine the outcome of. If both players don't know, it's over. I don't think you should be determining the outcome. And there's actually so many little things that really go into it that as a casual spectator sitting at home in the Twitch chat, I don't have to consider that. I don't know, maybe I'm weird because of the way I think about things, but I can recognize me, the player, me, the viewer, me, the judge, me, the commentator, me, whatever hat I'm wearing, whatever mask I'm in, whatever mood I have, whatever personality exists, right? I'm concerned with different things at different times, and that's human. I don't have to be, I don't know, of the same mind all the time, right? So, different things to focus on. That being said, you do typically want to have some consistency, and that's the main thing is judge consistency. So, I just went through earlier tonight, and I remembered about it like only a few days before the event. But there is a judge Discord, but it's like an unofficial judge discussion forum, right? It's third party. It's not official. Anything that happens there can easily be just overruled by, Universe's games, right? So it's tough. I don't know. I don't know what kind of resources you can put into this, and I don't know how much of a priority it really is. But it's really rough that like the process for being a judge was just kind of reaching out and saying, "Hey, I'd like to judge your event," or can someone reach out to me and saying, "Hey, are you free to judge this event? We need more judges," and then that's that's it. Then the next thing I know, it's like, "Hey, show up tomorrow at this time." So I don't know who that should fall on. I don't know if I don't know whose problem it really is to solve. But I feel like if it's coming strictly from the community, I feel like I've seen this before in other card games where like the judges are off doing like their own thing, and they're the people being hired at actual events and just ruling things, and like TOs are like picking from like this judge Illuminati type shit, and they're explicitly ruling things different than like the way that the company wants, because the company doesn't have a judge program and they're not the ones hiring judges. So I don't think we want to get to that point. I don't think we're like big enough to survive stuff like that, because man, a bad judge call, a bad judge ruling, a bad conflict resolution can just really piss in your cereal. It can really just destroy your desire to play the game. And so I hope no one had that experience this weekend. I know all the judges were doing their best, and I know that we could be better. And I hope that, man, I just hope that like I can find like some resource, or I can be a part of creating some resource, because the state of judging right now is just kind of, it exists, right? It's almost like it's something that we have to have, so we just kind of do. But going into it, I was so nervous about, am I going to see some situation that I've never seen before? Am I going to deal with some unprecedented, ridiculous corner case? Do I really know the rules that well? Am I really going to look at interactions and go, oh, I don't actually know the answer to this? Because I'm sure they're out there. They're definitely out there. I believe in my ability to go find that answer, right? I don't know if it's in the most timely manner, but I believe in my ability to, pause the game and go find the answer through rules and things like that. But a big part of judging is customer service too. So we're here to help the players play the game, right? Not determine it, not give out game losses, not punish people. It's not the role of the judge. The role of the judge is to help two players agree on how to play the game, basically. So I really hope that something changes in the near future. I hope that there's more infrastructure, something, resources. Primarily, I want resources on how to resolve specific conflict. Like, oh, if you draw too many cards, remove the card from the hand. I think it's in the tournament floor rules, right? Remove the card from the hand, whatever. That's really cool. But just more specific interactions and how to resolve broken game states. At what point do you give a game loss? At what point can you say, okay, we're repairing the game state as much as we can, even though it's not perfect? That's what I want. That is really what I would like to see in the future, and maybe that has to come from the community, maybe it doesn't. But if it does come from the community, I hope it stays copacetic with everything the company wants, because I don't want to deal with that. But I'm going to leave you guys with this, because this is turning into the 20-minute rant I didn't want to do. I want to leave you guys with this, because it was my favorite judge call of the weekend. Not one I took, mind you, but I heard about it, and I love this one. And I'll let you give the answer down in the comments below if you know it. Player A enhances with monstrous ferocity, which says you may block with this card. You may attempt to block with this card from your stage to this attack, and then the opponent, player B, flips monstrous ferocity. So keeping in mind that monstrous ferocity's enhanced commit is an assigned effect, are you allowed to block this attack with the monstrous ferocity if you're player A? Let me know down in the comments below, and maybe I'll pin the answer in a week or answer in a different video or something. But I really like that one. I thought that one was really interesting. I remember coming over and seeing two of the judges conferring and searching through the rulebook to find the answer, or really confirm the answer that they gave, because it is kind of a weird one, and it's one of those ones where I'm like, man, I've never dealt with this situation before. So I was a big fan of that. I was a big fan this weekend. Congratulations to Kevin Broberg for killing another RLE. Congrats to Colby Cram for making it to grand finals. Big unfun stuff. Woohoo. Glad I got to see everybody. It was just a really cool weekend. It was a fun event. We had retro going. I finally got to cube. I got to finally cube draft. I drafted somehow an Andy Shield Big Bang deck, and at the same time a Air and Order Kirk Polka deck. They were all right. They had some schmoes, but it was a lot of fun. I'm really glad I got to do that. So, yeah, if I saw you this weekend and I didn't get to say hi or something like that, I'm sorry. But I was trying to stay focused on what bit of judging that there was to do, and really, I'm really glad I took the time to do this, because I think that it was really valuable experience, and I think that I now understand just processes of playing the game and dealing with conflict resolution better. So I'm really happy I did. But what did you guys think? Did you have a bad judge call this weekend? Do you think we did a terrible job on the stream? I know a lot of people say that they're like, I know that there's like this perception around it being like if we criticize judges, people won't want to judge, but like none, none of the judges I talked to this weekend really care too much about that. I really hope that that's not the case if you're someone who thought about judging out there in the past, because really, if you are someone who is afraid of criticism when you do something wrong, maybe this isn't the role for you, right? Like, that's not to be harsh, but like, I think that accepting criticism in a role like this, where you are basically arbitrating, players' tournament livelihoods and things like that, you have to be open to that. And again, it's not an excuse to be like, well, no one's perfect, and what can you do? But, I think that recognizing that you're going to need that critique to improve and be better is just another reason why that infrastructure that we could have some sort of a judge program, having guidelines and tools and things like that, it can help you just learn from other people's mistakes. And, I try very hard to visually learn from other people's mistakes, but I also find that putting myself in their shoes, like doing the judging, helps a lot too. So, I would say just don't be afraid to do it. Just make sure that when you do want to judge, that you take the time to consider not just, do I know the rules, but what kind of situations, social situations, am I going to find myself in? Yes, you may know the rules, but can you arbitrate a failed game state where it's not really a rulings question? It's just two players forgot something. That's probably the most common difficult thing, is just two players forgot some game event. And now we have to figure out, well, what's fair to both players? What's the most fair to the player who, didn't benefit the most from this? It's not always the same. So I hope that we can catalog these events a bit better and have more consistency in the future. This is going too long. No one's still here. If you're still here, you have to comment that you are, just to prove to myself that someone listened to 22 fucking minutes. All right, I'm going. Good night, everybody. Thank you to everyone who came out to the event. Thank you to Darkside Games for hosting the event. I had a lot of fun, and I will see you guys in Dallas. Go shop at Unfun Stuff. Pre-order Jetburn today. Bye.